Gravedigger. My name is Nathan Barnett, and I am a former gravedigger from New England, and on this show I will read real stories from real people about real ghosts, goblins, ugly cousins, and everything spooky in between. And I am extremely afraid of everything. So this is a bad idea. Let's go. This is called Old and Young. Everything was wrong with this house. The basement flooded every other week. The heat went out. The toilet backed up. The refrigerator broke. And the kitchen was a Betty furnace, aqua and pink, that almost made you ill, but it was cheap. My friend Cyrus Hall and I were in our 20s. We were both new to the island, and neither of us had any money. When we located the house, we thought we'd found a perfect winter rental. A seedy living situation on wild Nantucket was a definite badge of distinction. It was the fall of 1972. Another one in 1972. Weird. The same year my car was made. I wonder if my car is haunted. I hope so. Hope it's haunted by like a German babe from the 70s. She rides shotgun with me every time. No, that's sad. I don't have a girlfriend. Back to the story. It was the fall of 1972 when we moved in. On our second day there, I was coming home from work at 5:30 and saw an old man with a gray coat and a gray fedora hat. He was standing by the front door and seemed to be fumbling with his key. I thought to myself, oh great, some old geezer lives here too, and we won't be able to have parties. By the time I'd parked the car, he was gone. I assumed he'd gone into the house. The building has been divided into 3 apartments. I'd met the kids living on the other 2 and assumed that this guy belonged to a 4th living area tucked away someplace in the back. I didn't give it much thought. When we had been in our apartment for a week or so, Cyrus came into the kitchen one morning with a funny look on his face. He told me that he'd woken up in the night to see a man with a hat standing at the foot of his bed. Startled, he'd sat straight up and the image had vanished. Oh, dude, the guy's a perv. One night, I also woke up and saw a shape in the darkness. My eyesight isn't terribly good, and I assumed that it was my coat hanging on the back of the door. I could see the shoulders and the general shape of a person, but really thought it was just clothing on a hanger and maybe a hat thrown over the hook. I was groggy, so I rolled over and went back to sleep. In the morning, I found that there was nothing hanging on my door. Oh, dude, I would have panicked right then. I remember that green feeling in the pit of my stomach when I realized I didn't know what I'd seen, but I knew I had seen it. Yeah, get out of that house. I noticed the old man a couple of other times. Always when I was getting home at dusk. I only saw him from my car. He was always gone by the time I had got to the front sidewalk. I don't remember correlating the sight of the old man at the door with the figure when we had seen... What? I can't read this. I don't remember correlating the sight of the old man at the door with the figures we had seen inside at night. Okay. One morning, I was talking with one of the girls who were renting the lower apartment. I thought of the old guy and asked if she knew anything about him. She gave me a funny look and said that there was no older person living in the house. My girlfriend Jody moved in during the winter. She didn't have a job and was alone during the day while Cyrus and I were at work. She didn't know a soul on Nantucket, but she repeatedly heard someone calling her name. Dude, that's messed up. Okay, that's the first really scary thing I've read in this book. Oh man. Okay. She went to the door again and again, puzzled, but there was never anyone there. In early spring, a friend of Jody's came for the weekend, and Cyrus, thoughtful guy that he was, gave his guest room and planned to sleep on the living room couch. He was sitting up reading the paper after the rest of us had gone to bed, and something caught his eye in the corner of the room. Looking up, he saw the faint silhouette of a man with a hat. Dude, that guy's coming for you. It was more an outline than a solid shape and seemed to be moving slowly toward him. Dude, get out of that house. He said he really couldn't believe what was going on and just sat there, more curious than afraid. Everyone does that. Bunch of freaking morons. Who's that guy coming at me? Well, wait and find out. No, you won't. You run away. And then something horrible happened. He felt this shape go into him. What? This is a good one, man. This is a good freaking story. Okay, I'm going to restart this part over. And then something horrible happened. He felt the shape go into him, or so he said. And he felt himself drowning in a wash of ugly, angry, violent emotion. Ooh, dude, I have freaking goosebumps. He had a strong urge to go into my room and attack Jody and me. What? Dude, he's like freaking possessed. He had a strong urge to go into my room and attack Jody and me, to do something physically harmful to us. It sounds laughable as I'm telling you this, but I guess it was pretty terrifying at the time. He jumped up from the sofa and ran into the bathroom and started splashing cold water on his face and neck. Dude, I have so many goosebumps. I have so many goosebumps right now. When he looked up in the mirror, holding a towel, he said that a hideous face was coming out of his. He claimed that something horrendous inside his body was looking out at him. I hate this one. This one is too scary. I asked for it and the book answered me. Holy crap, the book is listening to me. I said these weren't that scary, and now there's a horrifying story happening in my hands at my face. Okay, we only have a page and a half left. Oh man. Now, we'd had a humdrum, dull evening and made something hallucinogenic like rice-a-roni for dinner. Wait, let me read this. He claimed that something horrendous inside his body was looking out at him. Yeah. Now, we'd had a humdrum, dull evening and made something hallucinogenic? What? And made something hallucinogenic like rice-a-roni for dinner. That doesn't make sense. Cyrus was straight and he didn't do drugs, and most of us did. And what any of us did was drink wine and beer. Not knowing what else to do, he turned on all the lights and went to the kitchen and made coffee. He said he sat at the table and drank a full pot and smoked a cigarette after cigarette. By dawn, he felt this presence leave him. Whoa, it was in him that long. It was there one moment, an outrageous urge inside himself, and then it was gone. He knew the moment it left, and he was okay. Exhausted, he laid down on the couch and slept most of the day. That afternoon, he was in the kitchen telling Jody and her friend about what happened the night before. I was in the bedroom taking a nap. I woke up to feel a tremendous pressure on my neck and back of my head. I had to struggle to get myself out from under it. It was as if someone had put a sofa cushion on top of me and was leaning on it with all their weight. When I got myself to a sitting position, I jumped out of bed and ran into the kitchen, and that's when I heard about Cyrus's experience of the previous night. Dude, this dude is angry. Whoa. Okay. Where was I? By then, all of us had the spooks, and Cyrus and Jody and I couldn't wait to move out of the place. Nothing much happened for a few weeks, and then, shortly before the lease was up, we were sitting around in the kitchen with some friends, and someone suggested we have a seance. Bad idea. You're an idiot. Although I did a seance in Seattle in a haunted hotel, so maybe I understand the intrigue. But still, bad idea when something that intense happens. Okay, it was one of those, yeah, great idea, party situations. We had a Ouija board, and 4 of us sat down around a table. None of us had ever used one of these things before. We did seem to contact something. The pointer spelled out that the spirit was that of a girl who had died in an explosion. That was scary, and we quit right there. We had at least 2 bottles of wine that night, and by the next morning, the whole business looked pretty silly. In 1974, I met a couple working for a historical association who mentioned that they had just left a miserably uncomfortable rental. She told me it was on the same street as the apartment. Cyrus and I had lived on 2 years before. It turned out to be the same place. I asked her if she'd noticed anything odd. She said she hadn't, really, except that the house just felt bad, and that she had repeatedly seen a man in a gray coat and fedora hat outside their back door. I want to go to this house. I bet you I could find this house. She could see him through the kitchen window every time she walked over to the door and opened it. No one was there. Years later, I was doing research in Historical Association's Peter's Folger Library and came across a box of old Inquirer and Mirror newspapers. I was browsing through them, curious to see the hot items of the 1950s and 60s, and a small article caught my eye. You can look it up, but please change all the names. I don't want to upset anyone. The article stated that a young Nantucket woman had been killed in an explosion somewhere down south. It then went on to say that she had grown up in the house Cyrus and I had rented in 1972. Oh, baby. That was a good one.